So this is what I am. I'm working as a research engineer at Saama Technologies, and we are life sciences domain. We work on life sciences domain, and we have the privilege of incorporating machine learning into the life sciences domain. Right? And I also contribute to open source libraries like Rasa and Pandas. And I run Women Techmakers Chennai, and that's what has put me in the close circle of women who code, because we all run for the same mission. And that's what I do in like 3 times. And I already asked you this question, and a lot of you are first timers. Don't worry, we are going to build one. And I would like to share my chatbot story so that you will gain some inspiration from that. And that's the whole idea of the talk. So my chatbot story started about 4 years back when I graduated and joined my first job. And instead of becoming a software engineer by core, I became a chatbot developer. And because I was working in a very small research team, which built this very new product called InterviewBot. So this is a recruitment company, and you get a lot of resumes every day, and you have to scroll through it, filter them, and then you have to come up with questions to ask them whether they are saying the right thing or not. So that's when InterviewBot came in, and you load the resume. If the person says Python, InterviewBot will ask 5 questions and give you an evaluation whether the person knows his skill or not. So that happened, and that went on for about 2 years. And around the period, we learned a lot, and we went ahead and ran this bot sprints in Chennai. That's where I'm from. And this is a community where people come in and build their own bots. It's like a mini hackathon, but it's a collaborative effort. And then that went on to conducting hands-on workshops, and then becoming a Rasa contributor because it's an open source library. Becoming a Rasa contributor. Rasa is an open source chatbot platform. So that's my chatbot story. And the biggest takeaway for you from this talk is not how to build a chatbot or what a chatbot is. I want to inspire all of you that chatbot is a great technology to experiment and play around with it. There is a lot of interesting problems that you could solve. It's in a very nascent stage, so you can dive in and take it up from here to different level. So it's not like solid principles or software engineering practices. It's very new, and there is a lot of room for improvement. And this talk, I wish it could be the start for all of you to get started, right? So today we're going to see what a chatbot is and what chatbot architecture is and how to build one using Rasa. So I hope you all know this, right? Chatbot is something which emulates humans. And we have Siri, we have Alexa, we have Google Assistant. So this needs no introduction right now. But there are very domain-specific chatbots which do certain things very well. For example, Google Assistant can't answer questions about your product, but a chatbot built for specific domain like pharma or life sciences can answer those questions very well. For example, we built a COVID-19 chatbot which answers questions on COVID-19. So there are chatbots which are very domain specific, and there are general chatbots. That's where Alexa, Google Assistant, and Siri of the world comes into the picture. The next thing you need to understand is an architecture. Like a web application, chatbots also has an architecture. So when you think about a web application, you have forms and you fill them, and then you press submit. So that's how a typical web application works, right? You have a form, you fill it, and then you press submit. The data goes to the backend and it gets parsed. You either get back the result or you perform an action, and somehow the result reaches the UI again. So when you think deeper, the input from the user are very clear. Like if you ask for a name, there is a name field. If you ask for an email, there is an email field. And then there's a button which says what action to perform, whether to order, whether to submit, whether to subscribe, whether to unsubscribe. So everything in a web application is very clear. But when it comes to chatbot, that's where the challenge starts, right? So everything in here is a text. So chatbot input is a text and output is a text. So we need someone in the middle who can parse this text and convert that into a well understandable format. For example, let's say I'm looking for a restaurant. I'm building a restaurant search bot, and the user comes in and say, I'm looking for a Mexican restaurant in New York City. Somebody has to say the person is looking for a restaurant and he's looking for a Mexican restaurant, and the person is also looking for in the New York City, not anywhere else in the world. So somebody needs to do it, and that's where this NLP engines come into the picture. So there are a lot of options in this place, and I specifically love Rasa and API.ai, Dialogflow. So once these engines comes to picture, they split these sentences. That's where all your ML and deep learning comes into the picture, and it gives you the intent of the user to do a restaurant search and the entities involved to what are the data parameters that is involved, whether to look for the cuisine is Mexican and in the center of the New York City. And with this information, you can query a database, and then fetch the data that's involved. For example, you can go to TripAdvisor, you can go to Google and say, what are the top Mexican restaurants, and get back a list, convert that into a text, that's your code, and then send it back to the user. So that's how a typical architecture of chatbot revolves. It starts with a text and ends with a text. Intermediate, in the middle, there is an NLP engine which takes care of passing this text into useful information. And before moving on and building one, I want to walk you through a few terminologies that you should know. And so the first one is show me yesterday's financial news. So there are three things you need to know in the chatbot terminology world. One is an utterance, second one is an intent, third one is entity. So anything and everything that the user says is an utterance. Hey, hi, hello, goodbye, see you, show me yesterday's financial news. Everything is an utterance. And intent is the action that needs to be performed. In this case, show me the news. In case of hi, hey, and hello, it's greeting. In case of goodbye, bye, see you, it's end the conversation. And there are specific parameters which we will use to filter out the data. For example, it's yesterday's news, not today's news, not last week's news. It's yesterday's news. So you can pull out yesterday and then put today in there, and it will give you a different result. You can pull out financial and you can say technology news, it will give you a different result. So these are what we call as entities. In a typical web application, you will fill these in a form. So hi, hello, all of these are utterances. On the right, we have intents that map to each utterance. Right? So we have greet, end conversation, and restaurant search. Similarly, if there is a show me a Mexican place in New York City, then the Mexican becomes the cuisine, and New York City becomes the location. So that's the entities. So before moving on, I just want to take a quick poll. Did you understand all the concepts involved? Did you understand the architecture? Did you understand the terminologies involved? Cool. Let's move on. Right. So the brain of chatbots, we talked about this. It's an NLP engine. This is where all the machine learning or deep learning comes into the picture. So there are a variety of options over here. For example, there's Dialogflow by Google, with.ai by Facebook, Lewis by Microsoft, Rasa NLU is open source, Recast.ai is another, Chatbot is another open source platform. These are all machine learning platforms that lets you build chatbots in the moments of time. They have amazing documentation. All you have to do is just go there and play around with it. So these are all my favorite. I have tried all of them, and you can start with pretty much any of them, and they are all amazing. And the role of this AI engine is to detect intents. When a person says something, what is the person meaning to say? And to extract entities from the statement. Once you understand it, you have to find out what are the data parameters involved. What is the user actually looking for? And then trigger the respective action. Go and fetch information from the database, or place an order for the user, or send an email to someone. Can be anything. Switch on the light, switch off the light, and then return a response back. So this can be when you say hi, the bot replies hi. That it can be that simple to placing an order and coming back and saying, hey, I placed the order successfully for you. Now you want to make a calendar invite for the same. So there are an enormous number of options over there. So coming into building a chatbot, we're going to jump into the code in moments, but before that, there are 5 steps that you need to be aware of before building a chatbot. One is you need to have a knowledge base. I know it's chatbot, so it needs to have some knowledge. It's typically a database. It can be your IMDb, it can be jokes database, it can be any external API, it can be Google Maps, it can be Google search results, it can be any data. And you need to design conversations. When you're building a web application, you design the UI, right? You know where the forms goes, you know what happens when the person clicks submit, all that. So here you have to design the conversation saying, if this is the intent, what is the action? If this is the intent, what is the action? And then we have to train the NLP engine. In most cases, it's just, excuse me, in most cases, it's just a single click of the button. And then you need to code this action server so to access the knowledge base and get back to you. And the 5th is, building a nice UI for your chatbot, because it's going to be the face of the world, right? It's going to face the world. And no chatbot engines, no chatbot platform comes with a built-in client application. You have to build one for yourself, or you can integrate that with Slack or Facebook or LinkedIn or any of that sort. Or Telegram bots are very common. So you can either build one for yourself or integrate with an existing one. Let me go walk you through a few examples, and we'll be building one of them. So whenever I do a chatbot workshop, I start with this. This is a no-brainer, no NLP chatbot. Whatever the person says, the user says that, just to warm people up. So it's like 4 lines of Python code. Take an input, print an input. Take an input, print an input. That's it. And then we go a bit further where we write actions alone. So it's a Google search bot. Whatever the user says, send it to Google, get the results back, and then send it back to the user. Again, it's no-brainer. Some 10 lines of Python code, and you get the actions piece done. Next thing which we are going to build right now is the dictionary bot. So it's going to have English dictionary, and every time you give it a word, it's going to bring back the meaning or the opposite. So are you excited to build this with me? Yeah, so let's jump right into the code. Let me just awesome. So I have all my chatbots over here, and I created a directory just for my word bot or the dictionary bot, right? And so to install Rasa, you need to do pip install Rasa, and that will take some time. So I've already installed that, and I'm using my virtual environment, right? So once I have Rasa in place, it's a command line tool. All I have to do is Rasa init, no prompt. So you can also do just Rasa init, that's fine. So Rasa init, no prompt. This will create a basic directory structure for you. It will give you a brand new chatbot, okay? That's already trained and everything. So this also takes some time to set up. So I've already created one. At the end of a creation, this is what you'll see. So it will have actions, it will have models, domains, and all of that. So let's go here and see what it has. It has some data, it has some models, machine learning models, and then there are a bunch of files. Okay, cool. Now let's go through one.
Sorry to interrupt you, just a quick thing. Can you increase the font on your terminal wherever you're working?
Sure.
The font size, just to make it a little dark. Yeah.
Let's increase this. Is better?
Yeah, I think this is slightly better. Yes. Thanks.
So, okay, so now we have all these directory structures in place. Now let's quickly build this. Here you have something called as an NLU.md, and this would be your starting point, right? So since it's a pre-built chatbot, it comes with a basic template that we need. And let's go ahead and delete all the things that we do not need. All I need is just hi. If it says hi, and we'll respond hi, and then we need another intent, which is to get the meaning, right? So there are some of the ways people will ask, for a meaning. So get me the meaning of word good, and what is the meaning of quarantine? Do you know the meaning of bad? I'm out of words right now. Let me know the meaning of hell. I don't know. I'm just pushing words here. Okay, this you can also frame it in a different way, like get me the meaning of good. That's it, right? So there are these different ways. There are enormous number of ways you can ask for a meaning of a particular word. So that's there, and we have to mention which of these is an entity. So to do that, we have to mark those words and say that is the word for which we are going to get a meaning of. Okay, so this is a word. This is an English word. You can name it whatever you want. This is all dynamic. So again, don't get scared away by this format. It's a markdown file, and this formatting is well documented in the documentation. So you give the sentence, you mark a word, and say what entity is it. It is, right? So that's done. And then we'll go to the stories. Again, it comes with a basic template. We're going to delete all of that, except for this one. Right. So this one is going to be my get meaning. Right. Okay. So what happens in stories.md is you mention a intent and what is the action, right? So here get meaning is the intent, which we defined in the nlu.md, right? We mentioned get meaning intent, and here get meaning is the intent, and action get meaning that needs to be triggered. We'll trigger the action. We'll define the action soon, right? So now we have the data in place. Now we'll have the actions, right? So actions again comes with a basic template for you. So let's uncomment this, and here you need to mention the action you wanted to perform. So here is an action. So let's put that. I'll also change this name to action get meaning. This is an actual Python server, so you can run this and then hit an API, get the response back. You can do all that over here. If you have your own database, you can query that from here and all that. So for this particular demo, I have a NLTK helper function. So this function is going to get me all the meanings required. Okay, so it's a get synonyms function. It takes a word and then returns the synonym of the word. Okay, and then we need to get the entity as and when, like, person types something and presses enter. This is where the control comes into the run function of that action. So in here we'll get that word, and then we'll get the meaning of the word. Get meaning, get synonyms of the word, and then here you say meaning of the word. Word is our meaning. Cool. So whenever someone asks for, get meaning, any of the intents and get meaning, get me the meaning of good, bad, quarantine, whatever, the control should come here. Here we will get the word entity, and since it's a list, we'll get the 0th element. And once we have the word, we'll call the get synonyms function, and then we'll have a meaning. Once we have the meaning, we'll print it out. So that is your actions. Now we have to bring all this together for the training. So here, like you see, this is a domain. This has all the information about the bot. Like I said, domain-specific chatbots, right? This is where all your domains go into place. So intents, you need to mention get meaning. And then there is another section where you mention what are all the entities you have. Right now we have only one. And in here is the responses. So some of your responses can be just, a text message. I'm going to change this to, I am a TikTok. Okay, and you can also have actions, which we have, right? Action catch meaning, and all of this are brought together. So we defined our intents and entities over here, how the conversation flows over stories.md, and what actions to trigger, and what is the domain over here. So that's all the things that we need for this to run. So now let's train the chatbot, right? This takes some time, so let's hope for the best. Okay, so the training has started. There is also a module called test where you can define what conversations that you need to trigger. For example, I'll show you this. While the model is being trained, I'll share you this, right? Just a greet. So this intent is greet, and then it has to return with an utter greet. And then you say get meaning, and give a get meaning example, and then get me the meaning of good. In this case, the bot has to trigger action get meaning. So that's how you define a test. So I hope the training is complete. If not, see. Okay, it's almost done. So it comes with a predefined set of models that you can use. For example, here is a lexical syntactic picturizer, it's a count vectorizer. So these are all different set of machine learning models brought together to make this work. And finally, one important thing while this is still training, there's something called as an Endpoint Store YAML. Here is where you can connect to Slack or Facebook or any kind of webhooks. For now, my webhook is just the actions endpoint, which I'm going to run in my local system. You can also run it in a server and then call that from there. So this is my actions endpoint. Other than that, there are a bunch of, you can use Redis, MongoDB, all those information goes in here. So that's endpoint.yaml. Okay, this is going to take some time. Probably I'll use a different version I have over here, and I hope that works. Okay. Rasa shell will give me a chatbot which runs in my shell. Okay. Source and then Rasa run actions should run the actions for me. Okay, the model has also completed. Okay, so this version of the bot, I have both get meaning and get opposite, and I hope that works. Come on, shell. Okay, there it is. So let's say hi. Who are you? I'm a dictionary bot. I bring meanings and opposites to my life. I don't know, right? So what is the meaning of good? Oh, okay. It's bringing all of the synonyms, like good has a lot of synonyms, and this is directly from our NLTK bot. So the meaning of the word good is a lot of things, and you can pick whatever you want. What is the meaning of convention or quarantine? So now it kind of broke. Not really sure why. I don't know. Maybe the training is full of. So let's try opposite, right? What's the opposite of give me bad. Okay. So yeah, so the opposite of the word, okay, I think I copy pasted it. So the opposite of the word good is bad, evil, and all the badness in the world. So let's say bye and in this chat. So that's a simple chatbot, and right now it's trained for few things and it can pick up associated things. But for it to work for all the words in the English language, there is a regex that you can train using a regex pattern. So that's a more complex topic. You can figure that out from the RASA documentation. But ultimately, you have RASA in it, and from there you have a bunch of configuration and then train, and that's how your first chatbot gets built. So coming back here, if you have any questions, I can take that now.
Hey Bhavani, so there were a bunch of questions right from the start. Maybe
Okay.
I can just read through some and see if you would like to answer them, because I just wanted to kind of start from the beginning.
Sure.
So here comes the first question. It's by Sayani. She has a doubt as to how RASA chatbots are different from Dialogflow chatbots. Um, and just like, could you explain that as to which one is better?
Uh, so Rasa is a Python open source chatbot platform, and it's actually not so different than Dialogflow except for the open source stuff, right? So when you work in a very secure environment, you do not want to give your data to Google. So that's the underlying assumption that where Rasa rules, right? It's open source. The code is available. You can put it in your server, and nobody can hack it or nobody can question your data compliance. And that's where open source tools are the key. But if you are playing around with it, if you want to just explore different stuff, Dialogflow is the way to go. And Dialogflow has been working really well for 4 years from the time it has started. Then it was acquired by Google. And Rasa has evolved for an open source software without a lot of data. You can imagine how much data Google has. Without a lot of data, they are performing like equal to Dialogflow. So that's what inspires the most about Rasa. And they have a great community.
Okay, thank you so much, Bhavani. So one of the next questions is, can you explain what an NLP tool is?
Okay, so the ones we saw right now, they already have NLP incorporated in them. So you don't have to, explicitly sit and, fine tune it. So there is another presentation I do where you dig deeper, open out what's inside Rasa, go through the code and see where are the NLP problems, like where are the NLP comes in. So when a sentence gets into this AI engine, it gets split into the words and then it becomes numbers. And then with that numbers, we try to make sense of what the user is saying. So that's where NLP is, and that is all black boxed, covered, and put it in a very nice way. That's your NLP engine.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, what is the difference between chatbots and a search engine?
I think, okay, this is a very tricky question because the line is very, very small, right? It has become very small because chatbots are typically used as a search engine, to be honest. So chatbots are human-like and search engines are not. So with chatbots, you can have conversations. So let's say you're ordering pizza and you say, I'm in mood for pizza, that's it. The chatbot will take over from there, and from a business point of view, from that mood for pizza, how is it going to convince you to make that order? Because a lot of time we go to Swiggy and then just come back. We do that, right? Or we go to Uber Eats and then we just come back. But as a chatbot, it's responsibility for its business owners to, from your mood to how it's making a sale. So chatbots becomes humanly, it becomes friendly, it becomes engaging, and it's kind of manipulative to make some decisions out of your way. So that's where the difference is.
Yeah, I really like the way you put in that human touch when it comes to chatbot, right? Which is really important, especially considering a lot of things that are happening around these days. And people, if just they want to talk to someone, like just want to chat and all those, there are a lot of these new things coming up which offer mental health advice and some therapy sessions, etc. Right? So that's quite interesting. One of the other questions is, are you matching the words with entities by yourself or is there a dictionary?
Okay, so matching the words, come again.
Are you matching the words with entities by yourself or is there a dictionary?
Okay, I don't know what they exactly mean by that question. So, in actions, there is. Okay, let me show you this, right. Um, in my actions, there is a dictionary which is provided by NLTK, and it has copy of all the English words that's there. And from that, I am matching whether this word has any synonyms and then getting that back. So that is the actions part of it. But when I'm training, I'll only give 4 or 5 words. I can't train for all the words in the English language. But what I'll do is, ultimately I'll use a regular expression to fetch that word and find a meaning for that. So actions, yes, I use a dictionary, but when I'm training, it doesn't make sense to train for all the words in the English language.
Right, got it. One of the other questions is, how does a chatbot handle not merely complete sentences that contain informal colloquialisms like BRB, WBU, okie dokie, TTYL, etc.?
4 years back, this was not a thing. This was definitely, it was out of the question. So it was not supported. And you can do some hacks, and train your bot and all that. But now, with the evolution of deep learning and everything, you can define this as a language itself and train it inside your model. So it's already there. I think Rasa's new release is a diet classifier, which provides hooks to train all these BRBs and WBU and AFKs of the world. So now it has improved a lot.
Got it. Awesome. There are a bunch of more questions, but we are just about time. So if you maybe Bhavani could go back to the chats and just like take a look. There are a couple of interesting questions like how can I implement real projects or how can we call APIs for intent questions, etc. But we'll be posting hopefully the answers on the chat, and you can always connect with Bhavani offline as well to understand more about her work, to understand more about how to build a chatbot and the engineering behind it, of course. And at this point, I am really thankful to Bhavani for sharing her time and her knowledge to the community. And a huge, huge shout out and thanks to all the participants who were able to join the session and make it really interesting by all of these intriguing questions. Like basically, I was seeing all of these questions and kind of figuring out like there are some exciting things coming up. So kudos to everybody who could join the session and kind of keep it happening. And thanks a lot, Bhavani, for your time and for your energy today. And we are looking forward to speaking to you on other remote code platforms as well.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much, Diana, and all the women who code. I have never seen such a brilliant conference before. Like, so diverse. Thank you so